Hey, I am here with a couple of new to me sketchbooks, and I just want to kind of try them out with some different media and see how they work and how they hold up to different things. And one of the first ones that I'll try is watercolor. I have here the 360 Graf book, which is by Claire Fontaine, and I have already done a little bit in it. It's fairly thin, kind of smooth paper. I went to a art store, which is where I got this, and I got some other new little supplies, and so I was kind of trying things out in here. And so far I know that it takes pencil well, it takes paint pen well. I did this quick little brush pen with ink filled with fountain pen ink, and it does soak through because the pages are kind of thin. So I know that much already. I have some just like ideas jotted down in here. It says that it's drawing paper. Yeah, it's only 45-pound paper, and it says that it's good for, it's ultra white, super smooth, French milled paper for drawing, sketching, and writing. Perfect for pen, pencil, marker, and calligraphy inks. No feathering or bleed through if, you're using the things that they say it should be used for. Obviously, the fountain pen ink and a brush pen was a little too much, although I don't mind that so much as long as it doesn't go through multiple pages. So I do want to try these, with some other media as well. And then I also have this Life Noble book. I got it in a smaller size too, but I got this A4 size, so I can do big things. It does have cream colored paper, and it does open flat. That was an attribute of this one too that I really liked, because if I should want to scan a piece. Now this one you would not really want to do a double page spread because it's got this black border down the middle. Excuse the dog sounds. I'm dog sitting and she is being rather noisy right now. But that is something I really appreciate in a sketchbook. One of my favorite sketchbooks, as far as the paper in it, is the Strathmore mixed media. But I really have to work at it to get it to open flat. So it will by really kind of working at it. But so it kind of redeems itself because of the paper, but I would like something that opens a little easier. So that's one thing I'm looking at these. The other thing is that this one was pretty inexpensive. This one was under $20 for quite a number of pages. Let's see how many pages. I always glue the information into the front cover, but I'm not sure how many pages it has. I don't know, but quite a few. It's pretty thick. And then this one has 100 sheets, and they're maybe a little bit thicker than this one, so we'll see how that goes. I'm not as big a fan of cream colored paper, but compared to the white of this one, I don't have to have super white, but somewhere in between is okay. This is a little yellower than I prefer. So I'm going to grab some media and just go ahead and give these a try and see what I think. Alright, so one thing I want to try in these, I have a few mediums that I would like to try, because the ones that I use most often, it's just important for me to know. It's okay if they don't all work, but I just like to know. And I do have some a few new Julia K watercolors that I have not even opened yet. I'm excited to try out. They are Britta, Ulf, and Loki. So I'm gonna try those out while I'm at it as well. Alright, I've got them unwrapped now, and I've sped things up just so it's not quite so boring to watch me swatching these different things. But one thing that you can notice as you see this is how differently the colors look according to whether they're on that cream paper or white paper. Like on the white paper, that color looks so much more pink than on the cream paper. So that does make a difference, as well as the absorbency of the paper. And I'm feeling like the Claire Fontaine is a little bit more absorbent. That's the smaller white, bright white paper book. The Strathmore Mixed Media that I like is the most absorbent. It's a little bit closer to, a watercolor type paper. And then the Noble Notebook one is the colors sit on top a little bit more, which helps them, the granulation and stuff is a little bit more visible that way. So the next thing I tried was a water-soluble graphite chunky pencil, and I think it was a 4B. And then I'm trying an Albert Dürer watercolor pencil. And then this blue is the Posca paint pen, which I use a lot, so it's important to me for that to work well. And I do tend to like smoother paper for the paint pens. Now I'm pulling out my Neocolor 2, which is a water-soluble crayon, seeing how it lays down. Because the Noble Notebook, the bigger one, is smoother paper, I can get a more solid look on that than I do in the other one. But they both wash out pretty nicely. Again, you see a little bit more of like, since the Noble Notebook paper buckles just a little bit, you get some interesting ways that it kind of pools and dries. Neocolor 1 pencil was, or crayons, excuse me, was another thing I tried there in the green. Also tried a rainbow pencil on there. Trying just some plain colored pencils here in a couple different colors, different brands. And then now I'm pulling out some flat acrylic paint, which works pretty similar to acrylic gouache. Both of those I use quite a bit. So that's another thing that, I want to make sure works well. Then this bottle has fountain pen ink, which I will often use sort of as a watercolor in my sketchbooks. And so I kind of want to see how it behaves in there and trying to give it a chance to see how, because the colors do kind of separate in this and bloom. And then now I'm bringing out my watercolor, or I should say my water-soluble palette. It actually has an assortment of watercolor, gouache, and Neocolor True crayons that I've scraped into little pans in this palette. So I'm checking how those behave on here. They are something I use quite a bit, so it's just good to know what they'll do. And I'm kind of just playing around. So I already tested those watercolors from Julia K up there at the top, the handmade ones. And now I'm just kind of starting to layer over things and see how things layer, how they behave if I really kind of push this paper to its limit. And I'm kind of asking a lot of it here by having it pretty wet and layering one thing on top of another. I don't always demand this of my sketchbooks, but I do like to kind of know what I can expect out of it, whether this is even a possibility to do. And it's just kind of fun to play around and see what the limits are. These big A4 size pages do give me lots of room to play. I have recently not been using this large sketchbook. I've been using the smaller A5 size that are just a little more portable, easy to hold on my lap, and so on. But it is fun to have the option of this much space. from time to time. This is the paint that I'm putting on now is actually a mix of gouache and watercolor. This teal color is a watercolor, but I'm just kind of letting everything mix and flow together and see, because it's important to know how the watercolor, not only how a watercolor sits on the paper, but how it blends and mixes with other watercolors. So I'm putting on some very wet watercolor kind of around these already dried swatches that I made, and just seeing how they reactivate, how they behave with that. So all of that is good information for me to know, and other than it just being a fun little playtime. I'm taking a Neocolor 2 and just going to check and see how it behaves on top of some of the other media. Works very nice on top of this matte acrylic paint. Putting it on top of the Posca paint pen a little bit here. Adding some of my rainbow pencil in on top here and there. Just adding some doodles. All of these are things that I would do in actual artwork. You know, they don't make any sense here other than just trying it out. But this is how I work when I'm, making my artwork. So far, I'm pretty happy with how things are behaving in here. Obviously, as I just get this page really wet and really work it, it is buckling a bit with all the water and everything. However, it doesn't seem to be breaking down. Like, everything still seems to be able to sit on the surface okay. The paper's not tearing or pilling or anything like that. So that's all very good. You can see it up close here, some of the things that I did on there. So pretty happy with that so far. So let's pull out the other one here and put it a little bit more to the test too, and just get some more media layered onto it. Doing lots of pretty soupy watercolor washes and wet media on here, layering it on top of some of the other things, and again, just kind of testing everything out, pushing to the limits, seeing what the media can do, seeing what the paper can do, and just really putting things to the test. It also seems to be holding up pretty good. It has just a little bit more tooth to it. It's still pretty smooth paper, but there's just a slight bit more tooth to it than there is the Life Noble notebook. Things are layering fairly well. It feels like I didn't actually have any trouble with the paper breaking down, but it just feels like that's a little bit more of a possibility if I really kept continuing with it. Some of the marks don't work quite as well on top of the wet as perhaps they did in the other notebook. Not terribly different, but just some slight differences there. Okay, these have had a chance to dry now, and let's just take a look at what we have. This is the 360 Graf book by Claire Fontaine. I, again, really like how flat it lays open. However, it does experience some bleed through. It's not marketed as watercolor or wet media. It's for drawing, sketching, writing, little drier things. However, if it's for fountain pen ink, I kind of feel like it'd be nice if this didn't bleed through, although I was using it at brush, so it does go on heavier than if you're using it with a fountain pen. But here's the page that I tried out all my different medias, and it does, I put a wax paper in there to protect the next page. It does experience some bleed through. Not terribly. I think, it still could be workable, but this probably is better for drawing and inking, which with this black stripe down the middle, I probably would not do like art journal type things or Flowbone double page spreads. So I also use this for something. Not terribly impressed for the way I work, but it's okay. This book, however, which was actually cheaper, the Life Noble Note plain paper, other than that has the cream color, which I'm not wild about, but I am pretty impressed with how it held up. So it does buckle. The pages are thin, so it does, buckle, but I actually don't mind some crinkle to happen. And so I really got it pretty wet because I really wanted to test it out. I had puddles of the fountain pen ink here, a lot of wet media, layers of watercolor, really wet washy watercolor. I feel like I really kind of put it to a good test. Colored pencils, kind of the works. And let's turn the page and see, not any bleed through, which is pretty impressive. Also, the paper is rather smooth, and I like the effects that gets. I don't know if you can see, like this was a nail color too, and I like these little blooms and puddles that kind of come about because of the crinkles in the paper. I like that. I like how the fountain pen behaved. So I think this one is a winner for a thin paper notebook, sketchbook. It really did quite well. So this one's a winner. I first heard about these from Sophie McPike, so I figured they must be okay, but it's really good to see that for myself. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.